The first thing of note is just as Dr. Taylor's defense team had hammered Jane and her testimony while she was on the stand, they would continue to do so with the testimony of Sarah and Mat Blevins. As we have previously stated, when reading the transcript, it is obvious that the prosecutor was ill-prepared in presenting his case. But from the way in which the defense destroyed both Jane and her testimony, and continued to do so with their first two witnesses, they were loaded for bear. From everything we have discovered, Dr. Taylor and his defense team knew that there was no case against him except for Jane's testimony. Transcript Edits. The second thing of note is that the pattern we discovered in the prosecution phase of the transcript that suggests that it may have been edited before it was sent to the appellate court continues with the defense witnesses. And while the testimony of Sarah does not readily show this pattern, the testimony of her husband, Matt, readily shows the change in writing style. However, we have reason to believe that Sarah's testimony had also been edited. During cross-examination, she was asked two questions about Jane and her horse. The transcript shows that the defense asked her no questions about Jane's timeline of events. Yet, the only reason for the questions about the horse made by the prosecution would have to do with the response to a question about Jane's timeline. Yet, there is only one other glaring discrepancy between Sarah's recorded testimony and what is recorded in the often told story. Sarah Blevins, the transcript. The defendant introduced Sarah Blevins, who testified as follows. Quote, I live in Letcher County, Kentucky, about 2 miles from Jane Mullins. I heard of the killing of Ira Mullins and others on the same day it occurred. On the next day after the killing, I went to Wilson Mullins' house, where all of the dead persons were lying. I heard Jane Mullins say that she did not know who did the killing. I asked her if she had any idea who it was, and she said that she did not. She said that they had a black something over their faces and a green strip about as wide as her 3 fingers around their forehead. On the next Wednesday afterwards, I had another conversation with her, and she then told me that, quote, some persons, unquote, had an idea that it was Taylor and the Fleming boys, because on that day they had inquired at Mrs. Vanover's where the Fleming boys were, and had been told that they were at Jeff Fleming's, that they had inquired at the Flemings and they were not there, unquote. The quotes and emphasis on some persons have been added by us. This is because in several versions of the often told story, Sarah Blevins had testified that James Potter had told Jane that the attackers at the Pound Gap had been Taylor and the Flemings. This almost matches with Jane's own testimony. 2 particular statements are recorded in the transcript. Of course, the questions asked by the prosecution is unknown, but whatever they were, the answers were recorded as, quote, witness said Bentley, Jarvell Candell, and others told her not to tell who it was. The witness heard that Taylor and the Fleming boys were lying around her house trying to kill her, and that she got this information from James Potter, unquote. These statements are peculiar for a few reasons. First, although these statements appear to be answers to 3 different questions, 2 are not separated by the customary semicolon. The second is the addition of Wise County Deputy Sheriff Candell. According to the timeline set by Sarah Blevins and the newspaper reports, Jarvie Candell was not present at the inquest, which occurred on the 15th. Although Candell was never called as a witness, his primary job would have been to interview Jane and J.V. Bentley. The newspapers record that this interview occurred on Thursday, May 19th. Bentley was called as a witness for the prosecution. He and Robert Mullins had investigated the crime scene together and gave testimony about that investigation. We do not know if Mullins had participated in the inquest, which occurred the following day. But we know from the newspaper reports that Bentley, as a magistrate of Letcher County, did. Although both testimonies are recorded in the transcript with a style of writing we have identified as a possible sign of editing, neither man testified that they told Jane not to tell anyone who she thought the killers were. In fact, the defense had hammered Jane about her statements of not knowing who the killers were. In that testimony, she states that she had not said that she did not know who the killers were at the inquest or to Bentley. She went on to deny ever saying that to several people. She then doubles down on Bentley and the inquest by saying that she did not swear to Bentley that she did not know who they were because he told her that she needed not to answer that question. If, and this is a big fat if, John Bentley or anyone else testifying at the trial had told her not to tell anyone who the killers were, you would have thought that as many times as it comes up in this case, someone from the prosecution or the defense would have questioned them about such a statement. Additionally, these, quote, I don't know, unquote, statements started on the evening of the 14th. Sarah testifies that on the 15th that she heard Jane tell several people that she did not know who they were. Then she, Sarah, had asked Jane if she knew, and Jane had told her and her husband Matt that she did not know. Sarah goes on to testify that by the 18th, Jane had changed her story because James Potter had told her that it had been Dr. Taylor and the Flemings. But on the 19th, Bentley and Deputy Sheriff Candell had told Jane not to tell anyone who they were for her safety. They were a couple of days late. Candell reports his findings, and on the 26th, a full 7 days later, Candell comes back and escorts Jane to the town of Gladeville or Wise and puts her in protective custody, again for her safety. Something clearly does not add up in Jane's statements, testimony, or timeline of events. Now we return to Sarah's testimony, in which she had just revealed that Jane had learned who the killers were from James Potter. The transcript. In this conversation, she would say that she did not know Dr. Taylor's voice, for she had not much more than know him than she had met him. In the winter before this killing, Dr. Taylor passed by where Jane Mullins and myself were sewing, and Jane says, quote, "There goes that old devil," unquote. I asked her who, and she said, quote, "Doc Taylor." She said she wished Doc was in the middle of a kettle of torment, for she hated him ever since he caught Henderson Mullins. She said that she was so scared when the shooting was going on, she would not have even known my husband, Mat Blevins, if he had been there. She said they seemed to change their voices, unquote. Cross-examination of Sarah Blevins. On cross-examination, witness said that Dr. Taylor passed her and Jane while they were sewing, about 25 feet distance from them. She told me that the horse did not throw her when the firing commenced, as she knew of. She told Wesley Swindell in my presence that the horse had thrown her. Testimony of Mat Blevins. To be honest, there is not much to say about the testimony of Mat Blevins. But this is not because Mat Blevins was a failure as a witness for the defendant. In the transcript, Matt's testimony displays the change in writing style that tells us that his testimony may have been edited. We believe that there may have been a lot of his testimony that was left on the editing room floor. What that was, we will probably never know. But from the last statement recorded here, we can assume that Matt may have been deeply hurt by Jane Mullins. Not physically, but emotionally and psychologically. There are a lot of people in the world who do not make friends easily. To these people, friendship is based solely upon trust. They do not tell other people lies because they do not like to be told lies. To them, the worst thing someone could do to them is tell them a lie. We believe that Mat Blevins was such a man. But Jane had not only broken his trust by lying to him, but she had also lied about him. This is the reason for Mat's final hurtful statement. Mat Blevins, the transcript. The defendant then introduced Mat Blevins, who had testified that he lives in Letcher County, Kentucky. He heard of the killing on the same day it occurred and knew Jane Mullins. Saw her the next day after the killing, and she said she did not see anybody when the firing commenced, for she was so scared that she could not see anybody. She said she heard them speaking to her, and she saw 3 men behind the rocks, that they had a black something over their faces, with a green band around the forehead. Said that they cursed her and told her to go away. She said she did not know any of them. Have known Jane a long time. Jane and myself were friends, and she knew it. This concludes the testimony of Sarah and Mat Blevins. We at Kentucky, Tennessee Living want to thank you for watching our series on the Killing Rock. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell for notification. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky, Tennessee Living as we bring to you the history of the Appalachian Mountains. We must remind everyone that the story names Killing Rock, The Oft-Told Tale, Killing Rock, The Untold Story, Killing Rock, The Trial, and Killing Rock, The Defense are all under Kentucky, Tennessee Living copyright.